कैवल्य क्लीं कैवल्य क्लीं कैवल्य क्लीं कैवल्य क्लीं कैवल्य
Namaste. Welcome to Kaivalya Marga class. Let us begin this class with 3 Oms. Namaste. Thank you for joining this class. Thank you for allowing me into your homes. It is always a great privilege and pleasure to be an instrument. And we are all instruments in sharing this knowledge and creating this platform and creating this virtual space where we begin to revive some of the teachings that were held, which was a common knowledge, I guess, at one point, long time ago in the Indian subcontinent. But as time went by, and as social norms changed, as history changed, as culture changed, these things slowly begin to retreat into ashrams and became confined to initiations and guided learning. And that became a necessity because the knowledge is not so freely available. One had to search for a teacher, wait for a teacher to come and learn from him, and so on. But today, the dawn of golden age is there, where technology is making this possible once again, where sitting at home, we are given the opportunity to share, to learn, to exchange ideas. And so we come face to face with many teachers across many schools. An overdose of such knowledge may not be very good because it comes at a very rapid pace, so the retention becomes very less. So the traditional way of teaching, of learning one little bit at a time, practicing this, assimilating it, and coming to the next, is perhaps lost. But then it doesn't mean that that's something bad. We continue to learn, and what we require is aimed. And we come back to it to learn again, because the information can be stored now in virtual space and can be made available. So it is a wonderful experiment that we are on, this generation and perhaps the previous generation and perhaps the next generation, where we begin to embrace technology and make these things happen. Nevertheless, in today's class, hopefully this will be the last class for the earth element for now, and then we'll move on to the next element and learn that more in detail. I wanted to wind up based on the Moola bandha that we studied in the last class. So if this is your first class and you happen to bump into this class, please refer to Kaivalya Marga classes from day one. If not, at least the earth element, go from part one, part through. There are 8 parts, 8 hours of lessons there. So it will help you build the context to where we are today. So today what I've done is, based on what we discussed last time, thank you all for your very good feedback, candid feedback, questions that came. So based on that, I have framed a few questions that I received from many people together in a bunch of these questions. And so we will address them, and then we will take up the next element in the next class and proceed. So find my remote. There you go. All right. So we are like we have been in the last 8 classes. We are still in the Prithvi element, and hopefully this will be the last one, part 8. And in spirit, we are still learning from this particular temple, Ekambareshwar temple. It looks like Shiva is holding us there, grounded. Help us to form a firm foundation in this path. I don't know about you, but for me, these are very, very strong belief patterns. If you dig deep into my mind, and you'll find that these are so firmly anchored that I cannot ever think of shaking them off. Not in this lifetime, not in any lifetime, and I don't want to. The belief that when we have more to learn, that means the divine is saying, stay back, there is more to learn. Stay in this dimension, keep learning. So we can't come with, I don't come to a class with an agenda. I don't come to a course with an agenda saying this should be finished in 8 classes or 10 classes. It seems to me like the spirit is holding me back and wanting me for my own benefit, and of course for your benefit as well, where we begin to delve more and more into detail and study more. And so it is with that intention that we do this. So don't expect 8 classes for the next element. It could be 3, it could be 5, it could be 16, I don't know. We'll see how these things guide us. That is how I learned it. I didn't have an agenda, a pre-planned course. That is part of modern education, where you pay the money and you have goals set. But this is not set out by goals. This is where the vision unfolds itself. So you have to go with the God's time, if you will, not with our time. So bear with me, and I know you have been very patient in this, and I hope you're enjoying the journey so far. So the questions that are pertaining to Moola bandha in particular. One was, the first one, let's take the first one. They said, so, okay, we got Moola bandha, we got Ashwini mudra and Vajroli mudra. So what exactly is the technique? What is the time we should do? What is the duration we should do? Can we do it on empty stomach or no? And so on and so forth. There was also a question in related to this, whether can I do it between breaks and so on at office? Can I do it during the day? Before I go to the technique, one thing I want to be very clear. The way I have learned it and the way I practice these are that these are preparatory exercises for deep meditation, for awakening of consciousness. So if you say, because I have to practice this, just for the sake of practice alone, you could practice it at any point. There is really no fixed time for that. But if you want that practice to lead you somewhere, if you want to take that as a first step and then proceed, like the warm-ups, you can just do warm-ups and walk away. But if you do warm-ups in exercises and then your body is ready to go elsewhere, now into a deeper pattern of exercises, a sequence of exercises, you could walk away, right? It's something like that. So these kriyas and bandhas prepare the body, prepare the mind, prepare the nervous system, and get you ready. So you could walk away saying, no, this time I'm just going to practice. If that is the intention, then yes, you can practice it at any time during the day. But having said that, the only reason, or only constraint rather, is that don't do it immediately after food, after a heavy lunch, because the brain is in the interests of digestion. What does that mean in yogic terms? There is a downward pressure that begins to happen. Apana Vayu is in place. Then the Udana Vayu, the other Vayu, and we learn about these Vayus or different kinds of airs and pressures that body creates in the Vayu section, in the air element section. But when you eat food, different other Vayus come into play that are interested in digesting the food, sending it out. So at that point, it is not a healthy habit. Once or twice, one odd time is okay. But if you're going to say every afternoon after lunch I have an extra 15 minutes, I'm going to practice the bandhas before I go back to work, it doesn't work like that. You can practice it before lunch and then go for lunch if you need to. Because at that point, you don't want to upset the natural rhythm of the body, because especially Moola bandha is moving the energy upwards, whereas after food, the energy of the body starts moving downwards. So you have to wait. If you have had a heavy meal, just wait for at least 3.5 hours to 4 hours for the complete feeling of that heaviness to go away, and you feel light and energetic once again, a little hungry. So it is said generally when you come for any yogic practice, you should be slightly hungry. In other words, the digestive fire is ready. It's burning that energy to feed the fire. In other words, the way they will talk about in yoga is feed prana into this fire. Let it draw the apana and prana into the sushumna and so on. That might sound very abstract at this point. We'll revisit these in yogic terms later. But it's important for us to understand that when we are moving the energy up, if the fire is burning well, it'll catch on to that energy and move it further up. So we need the digestive fire to be burning brightly. In other words, a light hunger in your stomach is a great way to come to a practice. And you will be amazed, many of you might have experienced this. Let me see, I see some message. I'm not sure if I got cut off. It doesn't look like it. Anyway. So, I'm sorry, I got a little distracted because a red thing started flashing, dropping frames or something. So let's hope you are seeing this uninterruptedly. So the practice, the summary of it is when you want to practice, make sure you practice on an empty stomach. And just for the sake of practice, if you just want to learn the bandhas, focus on concentrating on these particular muscles, anytime during the day is fine. Okay? However, when you want to take this now into meditation, then the ideal time to practice is just before you sit for meditation. Because these are preparatory poses. This prepares the prana to move upwards. These are aids, powerful aids that help your consciousness to rise in meditation. Okay? So it's something like, if you want to, let's say you learn a Vedic chant, and I begin to teach you Vedic chant, and you begin to learn. So that's an afternoon time, you're learning. It doesn't matter, as you're just learning the pronunciations and nuances of chanting. But when you want to take that into the altar and pray, then you have to select the time to properly to do it, right? That is how I want you all to view these two things. So, having said all that, ideally before your yoga practice, you can practice these bandhas and kriyas. Before meditation, you can practice these bandhas and kriyas. Before any time you want to go inward, when you want to feel nice and upbeat and positive, you can practice these kriyas and bandhas. The only caveat I said is try and practice it on an empty stomach. That way it is more helpful and more beneficial. So what is the exact technique now? Now that we covered the prerequisites, if you will, what is the... I kind of mentioned the sequence of it, but let's go through that. Now, I'm just bringing these pictures that we discussed last time just for reference. The number 1 in that picture is the Vajroli mudra. There is just above the sexual organs, that is the urinary bladder. The Moola bandha is in the perineum region and at the root of the vaginal canal. That's number 2. Number 3 is the Ashwini mudra, which is the anal muscles. These are the 3 things that we spoke about as related to the earth element. Vajroli mudra, the control of the urinary bladder, is more related to the water element. But then I've introduced it here because you study that together. I didn't want to eliminate that and teach as a separate mudra. So what is the sequence? Now here, as you notice in the first line, Ashwini mudra is how you start. Let us say you're sitting for meditation and you want to drive your focus down to Mooladhara. So first you do the Ashwini mudra. This mudra as practice is practiced as kriyas. Kriyas means anything that you repeat again and again and again, it becomes kriyas. Anything that is action oriented, that is movement, constant movement, it is kriya. Okay? Because there is action. Kra comes from karma, kriya. Okay? So action oriented. So we say 10 kriyas. What does that 10 kriyas means? 10 contractions and releasing 10 times. Okay? So even as you're listening to me, you could sit straight with your neck slightly bent down. So it helps to drive your focus down. Okay? Slightly bent down. Drive your focus down to the anal muscles. Contract them nicely, pull them tight and release. Tight, release. Hold it tight and release. This is a speed that you need to do. So you hold it tight and release. Hold it tight and release. Tight and release. So 10 such contractions is one round. A minimum of 10 at least. Initially when you practice it sincerely like this, don't come back to me and say, I don't have time, what do? I don't have an answer for that. I really don't have. You have to make time if you want to learn properly. Because if you say, can I do it only 3 times? You can, of course, but it won't be as effective. Your learning will be much more slower. So at least 10 kriyas, contractions, which probably takes about 15 seconds to 20 seconds. Do it 5 times. So that is about 1.5 to 2 minutes you spend on Ashwini mudra. Can you do longer? Yes, of course you can do longer. You can do it more slowly. But Ashwini mudra you don't hold and keep. That is why it is called kriyas. It's practiced as a kriya. Ashwini mudra is practiced as a kriya. You're constantly contracting and releasing. You're not holding the anal muscles. Okay? So don't combine it with your breathing and then breathe and hold your breath, hold the Ashwini mudra. It doesn't work like that. That's a wrong practice. So don't do those kind of things. Don't read in between lines and come up with your own combinations. I'm telling you the best combination is breathe in and out. Don't correlate the breath with those movements of the anal muscles contraction and release. Just ignore the breath. As long as you're breathing, that's good. Okay? Focus on that and just say 0, 1, 2, 3, 0, 1, 2, 3, 0, 1, 2, 3, 0, 1, 2, 3. And when you contract it tightly and then release it. Feel those muscles. See, these are muscles, right? So even at a physical level, you're toning those muscles. There's a lot of physical benefit, and we'll touch upon a little bit of that later. So this is how you practice Ashwini mudra. First thing, when you sit down and you settle down and you want your awareness to go down, you do the Ashwini mudra. Ashwini means the horse mudra, because that is the easiest to do. And that is the gate that opens the energy out into the earth. So that is the gate you want to first become conscious of, right? And then the prana that flows through that gate, you stop with the Moola bandha. We'll come to that. But Ashwini mudra is one thing you have to practice. 10 kriyas, that is 10 contractions are called 10 kriyas because they're constantly in motion. You're tightening it and then you're releasing it. Tightening it slowly, releasing it. So maybe for a fraction of a second you're holding it, that's fine, but it's not considered really a retention or a hold. You're just going in and loose, tight and loose. So You could spend a week saying, just let me practice only Ashwini Mudra. I'm not going to worry about Moola Bandha, or I'm saying week. I mean, when my teacher first taught, I learned this from the disciple of Satyananda, Swami Satyananda Saraswati, a direct disciple of Swami Satyananda Saraswati from the Bihar School of Yoga. Swami Satyananda Saraswati was a disciple of Shivananda Maharaj. And I met him when he was quite old, in the 80s. He was the one who introduced me into yogic relaxation the way I do it now. Anyway, we'll talk about that some other time. I don't want to distract you. But if you do get your hands on the book called Moola Bandha by Satyananda Saraswati, Swami Satyananda Saraswati, please do get your that's the book which is a Bible for me. That the sannyasi who taught me, the yogi who taught me, learned these from him directly. So first, and when he said practice this for 90 days, 96 days, 2 mandalas, he says just do only Ashwini Mudra. 2 mandalas, that is 96 days, you do only Ashwini Mudra. Because one thing is, oh, I got the technique, I want to move on to the next. That's our immediate impulse, right? But you're not allowing the muscles to develop, the body to get used to that energy flow. So it's up to you. I would say a week, 10 days, a month. It's up to you how much you want to practice. Traditionally, if you want at least 1 mandala, I would say 48 days. You practice 48 days of just Ashwini Mudra. Don't be in a rush to learn these things. Just be very patient and learn it slowly. Then you never have to look back. Know that once and for all, you will never have to look back. That is my aim here, is not to encourage you to jump ship fast and just keep learning more techniques and more techniques. It doesn't work that way. It might work in worldly sense for other things. But in spirituality, you have to first absorb it completely, practice, especially in yoga. The whole secret lies in practice. Okay? Ashwini Mudra. 10 kriyas, 10 contractions, 5 times. Then comes Vajroli Mudra. Now Vajroli Mudra is not practiced as a kriya. You practice, you hold it for 5 breaths. How is a breath done in this place? But okay, before I come to the breath, Vajroli Mudra is what? The number 1 in that diagram. That's why I put the diagram next to this. The diagram is the urinary bladder. So Vajroli Mudra is more difficult. You won't feel the Vajroli Mudra happening as much as you would feel the Ashwini Mudra. Is very easy for us, right? The anal muscles, you and I know it. From day 1 we can get to doing it. Vajroli Mudra is the most difficult among mudras, actually, because it is in that place of the urinary bladder. And so Ashwini Mudra will help in learning Vajroli Mudra. Moola Bandha will help in learning Vajroli Mudra. So you have to be very patient, because that's why I said bend your neck down. You have to learn to isolate that feeling. That feeling comes from the urinary bladder. That is why it is a good idea for you to refer to diagrams of where the urinary bladder exactly is, so it will help you visualize that position in your body, in the region of that pubic area, where exactly it is and how do you control it. And then when you feel like passing urine at any point, practice Vajroli at that point. Doesn't matter if it's immediately after food or whatever. At that point, just for 5 minutes, let's say 5 minutes as I'm doing my work, I'm just going to hold the urine in and feel how it is. Just 4-5 minutes. That's the problem, and you're not supposed to hold it. Please don't listen to me then. But I'm assuming if you're in general state of good health and you don't have any problems, urinary tract problems and all of that, then practice retaining urine. You'll learn to isolate that muscle. Then you'll know, now I am understanding where that muscle is. That is a good time to practice it. But nevertheless, when you're practicing Vajroli now for meditation, then try and isolate that muscle only through visualization, and it will take time for that to happen. And you will not even know if you're progressing or not in that area. There's no direct feedback for us in a physical sense to know, oh yes, now I can do the Vajroli Mudra. Unless you are able to tune in very subtly and you know that you are doing it correctly. So intuitively you will be guided. Trust me. Don't look for feedback right away. Don't ask, how do I know if I'm doing it correctly? Just practice thinking that just generally shift your awareness to that area. As your homework, when you're not doing these practices, open the atlas, the anatomy, human atlas, or get an app, or go to the website and search for anatomy, go to that pelvic region, look for the urinary bladders, find out where exactly it's located, and then you will be able to understand that. So the application I used last time was from a company called Visible Body. So check out their apps. They have so many of the apps. They're not very cheap, but check them out. If you feel it useful, you can, or you can just see their website. I don't know if they have these images free to see, I'm not sure. Or there are other websites, I'm sure, which has anatomy images which you can easily and freely see. And so you study where it is, then close your eyes and imagine that you take your focus there. That's the best way to learn. I learned it with books in the library back in the 80s and 90s. And so that is a very good way to learn as well, because then your mind is very clear and you can go down. Vajroli mudra is practiced as a hold, not as a kriya. That is the difference between Ashwini and Vajroli. Ashwini is constant movement. Okay? That's why it's called Ashwini. Vajroli is you pull that muscle in, you contract the urinary bladder or the muscles around that region and hold it for 5 breaths. 5 breaths is 1 minute. The longer you practice, the more effective it is. So 5 breaths is 1 minute. Why would I say 1 minute? Because you breathe in for 4 seconds, you breathe out for 8 seconds. Breathe in for 4 seconds, breathe out for 8 seconds. So there are 2 things happening here. You're holding, first of all, your focus is on holding. And then you breathe in for 4 seconds, breathe out for 8 seconds. So it appears too complicated at this point. So forget the ratio of the breath at this point. Just focus and breathe in and out 5 times. Just use your fingers with every breath. A minimum of 5 times. Okay? 4, 6, that's fine. Practice holding the urinary bladder. So within 6 months to a year, you will understand it very well. Okay, that's how long it took for me, and it's not difficult at all to practice it. Regularity is what matters. So every day, if you're sitting for your puja, for meditation or anything, just every day practice it. As simple as that. So 5 breaths takes about a minute. Assuming you're doing 4:8, that's 12 seconds. 12 5s are 60, right? So 60 seconds is 1 minute. Do 3 minutes of Vajroli mudra. So you have 1.5, 2 minutes of Ashwini, 3 minutes of Vajroli. So that's about 5 minutes. Now in this 5 minutes, your brain is getting entrained. You're gently focusing there. Right? But you're keeping your mind occupied. So you're not thinking of anything else except that focus there and trying to learn. Just try it playfully, right? Don't get too scared and don't be worried. It doesn't work when you get stressed about it. Just say, oh gosh, I'm not getting that. What exactly is Vajroli? Okay, I'm hoping I'm holding that. Let me just do this 5 breaths, holding that. Doesn't matter. Anywhere in that area, you will learn first broadly, you will contract all that. Maybe Ashwini mudra will happen along with Vajroli mudra. That's okay. You don't have to isolate them. Ashwini can isolate itself, just practicing only Ashwini mudra. Then comes Vajroli. So play with it. Okay? Then you do the Moola bandha. Then you do the Moola bandha. Moola bandha is number 2 in that diagram. The perineum muscles for the men and the root of the vagina for the women. You will have to learn to isolate that muscle. So in Moola bandha book, in Swami Satyananda Saraswati book, he says for women they can put their finger in to feel exactly where the vagina, that the place is, right in the root. You can put your finger in and feel it if you want to practice that way. Otherwise, you can just once you know exactly where it is, you'll begin to understand and practice holding that in place. For men, it's relatively easy, I think, because I found it relatively easy to practice contracting the perineum muscles just around the region of the prostrate. Now, Moola bandha is held. Bandas are always held. Bandhas are never done as kriyas, in and out, in and out. Okay? Bandha, so it won't be called a bandha. That is a different thing. Like in Bhastrika Pranayama and all, we move our belly back and forth. That doesn't apply to the bandha. Bandha means lock. It's in place. Okay? So bandhas you hold it for 5 breaths. Hold the Mooladhara. Ideally focus only the Mooladhara. Try and isolate the Mooladhara from the Ashwini. When you're trying to focus and pull in the perineum muscle, it's likely that the Ashwini mudra also happens. Right? Number 2 and 3 can happen together. It is not wrong. Nothing wrong will happen. But what are you training is to isolate that. So that is why I said it'll take time. 1 or 2 mandalas of these practices it'll take. Okay? So don't be in a rush to learn. Don't be in a rush to feel. Say, I've been trying for 3 weeks, nothing is happening. 2 weeks, nothing is happening. At first it'll feel nothing is happening. But take time. Like I said, for me, it took about a year for me to understand this whole concept and begin to experience the Mooladhara. Alright. So Moola Bandha, you hold it. And again, once you hold that Moola Bandha in place with your neck slightly bent down, then you begin to breathe in and out. You have to, in Moola Bandha alone, hold the bandha and move your attention to your breath. And figure out, while you're breathing in and out, how easy or how difficult it is to hold the bandha and breathe. You're going to try and do 2 things simultaneously. You can bring the ratio of breath slowly, 1:2, 4:8 ratio slowly. But at this point, hold the Moola Bandha. The other 2 are preparing for this Moola Bandha, right? Once the Moola Bandha is performed, shift your attention to your breath. Hold it steady as you breathe in and out. The bandha is in place. Don't relax the bandhas with exhalation and inhale, contract. Okay, then that becomes like a Ashwini mudra kriya. You don't want to do that. So you have to learn to keep the bandha and isolate it from the breath. In other words, hold the bandha and your breathing should not affect the bandha. This bandha is in place. You're inhaling, exhaling, inhaling, exhaling. Bandha is in place. This practice, slowly then your body moves, your bandha is in place. This is what practice you will apply in yoga asanas. When we practice asanas, they say perform the Moola Bandha as you're moving, as you're in the pose. Now, when you shift your attention to your breath, the Moola Bandha goes away and so on and so forth, right? So this is a time you practice to just hold the bandha and start breathing. Shift your focus to your breath, but a part of your focus stays in the bandha. Hold it in place. Breathe in and out. Then the bandha is in place. For some of us, it may be very easy. Some of us, it may take time. But practice matters, because this is these 3 layers is one layer. Then you're adding other bandhas in place. There's a bandha traya, there's a maha bandha, maha mudra, and all of that. When all of that comes in, the intricate layers in between all has to be properly in place. Otherwise, it is just a facade. You can be doing that for 30 years, 40 years, and there'll be absolutely no benefit other than some mild physical benefits. Like, oh, I'm able to, I'm better continence and so on. I'm able to control my urinary tracts and so on. Other than those superficial things, the aim of these bandhas, rising of consciousness, guiding the Kundalini up the channel, all of that won't happen. So that's why I'm saying take time. Take time to practice these mudras. Okay? And practice will clear all your initial doubts. Like I said, nothing is going to go wrong if you practice it the way I said. Ashwini mudra, first, in and out, in and out, in and out, contraction, right? 10 kriyas, 5 times. Then Vajroli mudra, hold the Vajroli mudra, breathe in and out, 5 times, relax. Again, try, hold it, relax. Do it 3 times like that, or 5 times, depending on the time you have. Then Moola Bandha, you hold it and hold the bandha in place and set of 5. Don't worry, I'm not feeling any consciousness awakening, I'm not getting any other experience. Don't worry about all that. Just focus on the technique. First, perfect the technique. Okay? First, understand the intricacies of the lock. then you open the lock and you enter the home, then you enjoy the home. All of that will happen later. Right now you're just focusing on, you're teaching a 2-year-old how to lock the door, how to open the door so he doesn't get locked inside a bathroom. You know how we teach the kids, right? Don't lock the door, we say, otherwise we teach them, this is the way you unlock, this is the way you lock. So that's what we are doing right now. Just teach yourself what is this locking principle, what is the technique, that's all. And be very patient. Rest of it comes, like I said, always grace will guide you that. Don't worry about where is this leading to. Focus on the practice. Hopefully I made this very clear. Ashwini, Vajroli and Moola, ABM. Remember that sequence, write this down and try and incorporate this. All right. So I think I've covered what I wanted to in this. Let us then go to how do you sit for this? You can just sit cross-legged at this point. Very simple, cross-legged. If you know how to sit, you can sit in lotus pose. If you can sit in the lotus pose, you can sit on your chair and do this practice. As long as you're sitting, you can lie down and keep your knees bent like we do just before Shavasana. You can practice this lying down, you can practice this sitting as well. All these bandhas and mudras can be done both ways. So you figure it out. Give me 1 second. Oh, there's something wrong with my eyes. Okay, let me see. This technology is, oops. 1 second. I don't want to look scary. Okay, hopefully that helped. See, what happens is even the slightest change in the lighting conditions changes. Anyway, hopefully that wasn't too scary for you all. All right. All right. So I don't know where I was. I got distracted. But this is what it is. So practice these mudras. You can practice it lying down. Yes, that's where I was. Thank you. I was lying down or sitting. You can practice it either way. Okay, don't practice it while walking. Don't practice it while driving. When you're practicing means pay attention to your practice. You can't do it, oh, I do it when I'm driving to work. You can't. You're not practicing. You're focused on the road. You don't want your focus somewhere else. Especially these involve a lot of focus and concentration. When you can find time, say, okay, I've got about 10 minutes. I want to focus. Try and practice this. Okay. Then comes the next question. And this was asked by so many ladies especially. Effect of medical treatments such as hysterectomy or cervicectomy and also for men as regards prostate and so on. What happens to the Mooladhara if these things are removed for any reasons, the cervix or the uterus and cervix and all of that? It has no effect on the Mooladhara. Now, if you have had an immediate surgery, immediately after surgery, obviously you can't practice any of these things, right? It's common sense. It goes without saying. So I'm not talking of that particular situation. But surgery by itself, treatment of any kind in these regions, whether it's medicinal, all of that, has nothing to do with what we are talking here. The Mooladhara is a psychic center. The body is merely used as a reference point to activate that. We need something concrete to go in. It's like form and the formless. We need a form, we need a symbol to relate to something that is abstract or something that is too much for us to contain. For example, if I say, imagine the earth, you might say, what do you mean, imagine the earth? But if I show you a map and say, this is how the earth looks like, you'll be like, aha, now I get the idea. Right? The map is a symbol of something which is otherwise very, very vast. You can't hold in your mind. The Om is a symbol of something which is very abstract. Shiva is a symbol of the Supreme Consciousness, and so on. We use a form to go to the formless. Okay? It is in the same manner, because of that, our dependence on physicality, because we start from the earth element. The earth element is matter. From matter, we are going backwards. Why is it like that? Because we are retracing our steps to consciousness. Okay? Because we are retracing our steps back, we need the platform of something solid. That is all we are doing when we are isolating these anatomical points and saying this is exactly where Mooladhara is and so on. It is to open that gate, to help us understand the psychic center. And once you are able to tap into that, you will automatically, these centers, these physical parts of this will get activated. In other words, it will be very easy for you to activate that. Within a minute or two, you'll be able to activate these centers and go into meditation straight away. It almost like lock you from the earth. You can cut off from any atmosphere. Nothing will affect you because you have created that fortress with this kind of, you entered that gates of heaven, if you will, and therefore it won't affect. So don't worry about medical treatments. I'm very, very clear about this. None of this medical treatments in your physical body will affect your Mooladhara. What will affect your Mooladhara or make it ineffective with your practice in Moola Bandha and so on? Moola Bandha is a practice for you to understand, to get into the Mooladhara chakra. So that is your entry point, if you will, practicing of the Moola Bandha. First learn the technique, like opening, what is this lock? Where does it take me? First understand the lock, then open the door. Then the Mooladhara opens. So practicing the technique, what makes it ineffective? Not these medical treatments, not medicines, not tablets, not surgeries, none of that. What makes it ineffective is your lack of focus as you practice. If you are reading a book or watching TV and say, I'm doing my Ashwini mudra when I watch TV, it's not going to take you anywhere other than mild physical benefits. This needs complete focus, attention. Because through the medium of the body, you are entering into the subtle channel. Okay? So I'm using the word psychic very loosely here, just so you and I can understand. But this is the Sukshma Sharira. In the Sukshma Sharira, the astral plane, the dimension, if you will, that is where all this happens. So, medical treatments and none of this will affect it. Okay, so much for that. Be very clear about it. Don't get discouraged if you have had a hysterectomy or cervixectomy or anything like that. Now, this was another question that came to me. Is the Moola Bandha same as the Kegel exercises? Moola Bandha is not the same as the Kegel exercises. The Vajroli mudra, the contraction of the urinary bladder could be. Kegel exercise is more general in nature. The Kegel, from what I read, is more about to help continence, to help people to control the urinary bladder and so on. So it's a combination of Vajroli mudra, Ashwini mudra, and the Moola Bandha. It's a combination of all of that. So it's kind of similar, I would say. So if you find some techniques that you read as you Google about Kegel exercises, if you see they are kind of in line with what I said about the Moola Bandha and Ashwini mudra, so you can use your own common sense and begin to practice if that helps them. There are so many ways to do that. But Kegel exercises is what they claim, and the end purpose there is to just become more to be able to control those muscles and help you in a physical sense. So those are again the same physical benefits of Moola Bandha as well. So I would say that they are similar, but the purpose of practicing Moola Bandha is very different. The aim of Moola Bandha is very different from a yogic point of view. The other physical benefits are incidental in Moola Bandha. I would put Kegel exercises more for Vajroli mudra and perhaps even Ashwini mudra. But Moola Bandha is a very different form of meditative exercise. It directly begins to tap into your unconscious and subconscious mind. We'll come to that in this question. Yes, I wasn't sure where is that. What are the physical, psychological and spiritual benefits of this Moola Bandha practice? Physical benefits, like I said a few minutes ago, it's like the Kegel exercises. It helps you with continence. For example, if you're not able to hold your urine for long, if this mostly happens with as people age, then it helps. Now, it also helps with type 2 diabetes. It helps with all diseases of the lower extremes. I wouldn't say it cures. That would be a wrong claim. I wouldn't say it cures. That would be a wrong claim, and I would be giving you false hope. but it will help you begin to regenerate prana in those areas. And let prana then do its magic of regenerating the muscles, regenerating the functions of these organs, and so on and so forth. So the physical benefits, whether it is a lower back pain that you're having, okay, whether the discs are getting crushed and it's touching the sciatic nerve and so on and so forth, whether it is L1, L2 to L5 or S1 sacrum region, any of those pains, that is physical part of it, whether it is those pains, or whether it is urinary tract infections of some kind, or if it is incontinence, inability to control urine, or if it's some problem with kidneys, if it's some problem with sexual performance, and all of that, diabetes, liver related to some extent, liver, all of that, large intestines, constipation, all of that is helped by this practice. Cure has got a very medical term these days, so I don't want to claim cure, but I can definitely tell you that you will begin to arrest the problem where it is right now and not let it proceed further. And after arresting the problem, the medical problem, if you have a medical problem, then you begin to slowly reverse it. All this takes time, of course. You slowly reverse it, provided the entire lifestyle supports all of this, the other food habits and all of that, right? If somebody is an extreme alcoholic and he has other problems related to liver and other things, and if he's trying to do Moola bandha, it's not going to help him unless he decides to change, make lifestyle changes. So take these things with a pinch of salt. It is learned in isolation, but it's practiced as an supplement to our overall lifestyle. Is everything okay? All right, thanks. So it is practiced as a supplement to the overall lifestyle. So don't lose sight of the bigger picture just because you're learning this in isolation. There's no other way to learn it but in isolation. But it's not practiced alone in isolation for reaching maximum benefits. You understand this as a lifestyle practice. Having said that, assuming everything else is more or less in order and you're not extremely indulging in one thing or the other, then definitely it helps to a large extent. Lower back problem, 8 out of 10 people have lower back problems. So assuming you're doing some form of exercise, you're controlling your weight and all of that slowly, Moola bandha is a great, Moola bandha, Ashwini and Vajroli helps. Constipation, irregular bowel movement, all of that directly. Because the fact that those things begin to affect our subconscious and unconscious mind. It is some age-old memories that is acting out in these forms. Trust me. It's very difficult for me to prove that. But it is a very old samskara that is acting out, old vasana that is acting out. If it is a medical problem, it is some old held fear, these kind of things happen in previous lives. So those things are acting out. That is why we say it is a karmic effect. It is basically that deep in our unconscious we hold DNAs of our ancestors. It's again, sometime when we understand Vedic astrology and all, we'll understand. And therefore all of that pertains, it's understood as genetics, it's understood as hereditary now in medical terms, but it's far more than that. So when they begin to act out, it begins to reflect in the physical form. So when you control this Moola bandha, the whole energy begins to reverse itself back. So it transmutes that, converts the negative energy, converts the ill health and the disease energy back into health, and it actually, our organs begin to regenerate. I don't want to give you false hope in case you're having a serious kidney problem, but it definitely will help if you're undergoing dialysis and so on and so forth. Of course, you check with your doctor and ask him, can I do Kegel? Can I do, they might understand more as Kegel. So can I do Kegel? I hope I'm saying it correct. Kegel, I don't know. Pardon me if I'm pronouncing it wrong. But if they say, okay, then practice it because it will really help. And if you practice it like Moola bandha, the way I said with Ashwini, Vajroli and Moola, exactly in that sequence, and spend 5 to 7 minutes every alternate day if you don't have everyday time. But ideally every day, then it is really going to help you. You will see it as one mandala flows into the other. You will see the progress. Because I believe that the prana shakti, the universal energy, has can do anything. That is what miracle cures are all about. So we open and we practice and allow the prana to do the rest. Then anything is possible. So physical benefits, hopefully I've covered that. Psychological benefits is when you are feeling depressed, when we feel tired for no reason, when we feel angry and irritated for no reason, and most importantly, when there is an underlying fear or nervousness about anything. There is always some kind of fear. I've met people who will say, oh, I'm afraid to cross the road. Oh, I'm afraid to do this asana. I'm afraid to sit straight. I'm afraid to lie down. I'm afraid, what if I'm doing wrong? We are afraid of everything, thinking, oh, what if I'm doing wrong? Should I check with somebody? Should I choose? And then we overanalyze it, over-research it, and then we end up not doing it at all. That is simply an imbalance of fear. Fear and caution are two different things. It's good to be cautious, right? You're afraid of a snake because there is more of caution. But overly afraid, even the thought of snakes gives me fears and shivers. That is becoming now, fear is imbalanced. There is no snake anywhere around. The thought of snake should not suddenly create fear. Thought of snake should say, okay, it's an animal I'm not perhaps tuning into. I don't want to think of it. Put it aside. So there is caution and fear. It's good to be cautious, but you shouldn't have fear. If you have this underlying fear gnawing at your very core, if you have nervousness, if you have problems with social anxiety, as they call it, if you're not able to have a positive mindset at all times, then Moola Bandha helps. It's fascinating how it begins to reverse that mood. So it's a very good practice. For ladies going through menopause, it's a great practice because it begins to regulate the hormones. And at a very subtle level, it controls the mood swings from going one end to the other. And especially when you are as a practitioner of yoga and Kundalini, when you practice, you want to have the perfect mind, focused mind, neither too happy, not too sad, just focused on what you're doing. Perfectly balanced mind. Moola Bandha helps to retain that mind, the balance in your mind, bringing harmony in your thinking. So psychologically, it's a fantastic exercise to prevent depression, to help with suicidal tendencies and so on. Again, assuming the overall lifestyle, there is a general philosophy that is overall positive and so on and so forth. Okay? But it definitely helps in curing a negative mindset. It helps in eliminating or reducing fear to a large extent. Moola Bandha practice. Over a period of time. Spiritual benefits. That's what this is for, mainly, the spiritual benefit. In yogic terminology, it begins to move your consciousness upwards. It doesn't mean you won't be grounded anymore and you will lose your interest in family and so on. It doesn't mean all of that. These are imaginations that we superimpose upon ourselves. That creates fear, and we say, oh gosh, but I have family, I love my children, I don't want to leave all this and lose interest in my family and my work. It doesn't work like that. That is why it helps you stay balanced. If you learn it properly, you will learn to balance this and that and all of this together. It's fascinating how that will work out magically. But spiritually, what happens is it begins to block the energy from being drained into the earth. It draws the energy from the earth and moves upwards. It draws the energy from the earth and begins to move your consciousness upwards towards the Sahasrara. It is not coincidence, it is not folklore, it is not mythology that in our ancient texts, in the yogic texts, in the Puranic texts, they talk of Shiva in Kailasa and south. Ayodhya is in the north, and he comes down to search for Sita in the south. All these stories have a very deep symbolism happening. Now you have to understand that we have to take the Sita from the Lanka, from down below, up. You have to awaken the Devi. Parvati comes to the earth to practice penance, to go back to Shiva. All of this is just these stories happening in our body. The Puranas are being enacted, if you will, in our body every moment. So you could consider it as an historical event at one point. You can consider it as something happening in our. So Parvati right now in the earth doing tapas. What kind of tapas? She's building a cone lingam, a triangle pointing upwards. She's building out of sand from the atoms and molecules, gathering bits and pieces, forming a and moving the energy upwards so she can draw Shiva downwards. The lesser that we said about these benefits, the better, because the beauty and the joy that begins to happen when you learn to harness these energies, the psychic energy, the spiritual energy, otherwise known as the Kundalini, to how do you move that and guide her. She is you, not different from you. But in that experience, you play these different roles and enjoy, just like you enjoy watching yourself in the mirror. That is what it is. You'll watch yourself and the Kundalini, who is your reflection, is so beautiful. Your whole self, your self-image changes if you get the darshan of her. That is Prakriti in her supreme form, beautiful form, lying there waiting for you, waiting to reveal herself to you. That experience will change your life completely if you get that one darshan of her sitting in the Mooladhara. And so all the, sometime much later when we study the Sri Vidya worship, that is a ritual along with its yogic practices that you do to further this understanding of this place, further the visualization and understanding of these chakras and so on. It's just so fascinating. And the way they describe that in this astral plane, this Shakti is in this forest of gems. When that revelation happens, it's so beautiful, it's unbelievable that, oh my gosh, this energy is within me in the Mooladhara. It changes your life completely. You will stop asking. It's just amazing. So let that happen. The question that came to me here is difference between bandhas, mudras, and wait a minute, here comes another term, grantees. So we'll talk about grantees later. We talked about bandhas a little bit. Bandhas are what? Bandhas are locks, right? A gate is locked. So you know that is a lock. You can lock and unlock it. Mudra, the gate itself is called a granti. So you can use a bandha and unlock or lock, but the gate itself might be closed, right? So there are two different, I'm just giving an analogy here. So you want to open the gate. In this particular case, we are forming a bandha from going down. But how will the energy move that are preventing it from moving up? And many of us, most of us, are caught between these gates. The gates are not opening, and therefore just releasing a bandha is not going to help you. The gate has to open for the energy to move up. So don't get overwhelmed when I throw these things at you, and if this is the first time you're listening, know that just patiently listen with an open mind. Don't say, oh gosh, now there's a gate on top of a lock, what do I do now? Don't worry. Just listen. Know that there is this grace that will guide you to all of this. That's grace that's making this happen, the satsang happen. We'll learn this slowly. Promise. I promise you that. One step at a time. As simple as I can, I'll teach it to you from what I have experienced and learned. Then comes the mudra. So you have bandhas, grantees, and mudras. So you have the lock. Then you had the gate. So once you open the gate, you could walk away in the opposite direction. How will you know how to channelize the energy? Through the gates, right? Mudras are considered seals. Seals is perhaps a wrong way to understand, because it has something like this is done right here. So that is perhaps a technical term to understand mudras. If you read or Google, it's a mudra is a seal. Mudras are more to channelize that energy through this open gate. So you unlocked or locked this way, open the gate, and then you channelize the energy to enter where you want it to enter, guiding the energy. Mudras do that. That is why Vajroli mudra and Ashwini mudra are so important to learn, because that is a fundamental mudras. especially Ashwini. Vajroli will take time. As you learn that Vajroli mudra, other mudras, other grantees, everything can be practiced. You don't have to wait for one at a time. But if you take time, like I said, you spend a whole mandala practicing just these 3 exercises, Ashwini mudra, Vajroli and Moola bandha, patiently. As you keep learning other things, but practice that main with that as the focus, then you begin to understand that. So understand these concepts here. And the difference simply here in the form of analogy is bandhas are locks, granti is a gate on which the lock is put, gate opens. Mudras are that which channelizes the Kundalini energy. Okay? Just to understand, granti is a gate, bandhas is a lock, mudras are the channelization. The channelization of the Kundalini energy is done by mudras. Mudras like this chin mudra, like I always keep saying, the tips of the fingers control the breath, the prana. So mudras control prana. These kind of mudras, Vajroli mudra, helps divert the Kundalini to move through the gate that is opening up. So those practices come as well. So bandhas, grantees and mudras is what we learn in this path as we go along. None of these, it's dangerous if you blindly jump, ridiculously stupid, and I know none of you do that, but I just say I'm sorry to use that word, stupid, it just came out. Take that back. But it's something, we just jump into something without knowing, read a book, okay, I'm going to practice this, I'm going to drop everything else, and then you bump into something which you're not aware of, and from deep in your unconscious something comes up and you're like, oh gosh, something happened, I'm very terrified of it. So those kind of things won't happen if you learn it properly, and if you channelize these with prayer and reverence and a proper yoga practice and a lifestyle that supports it. All right. So this question came to me, and I'm going to end this class with this question. I know we are running a little late, so bear with me. When do we learn about Kundalini and chakras in detail? So many of you have asked me, and all this time I've been praying for the right time, because this is the holy grail when you talk about Kundalini and chakras. For me, it's not just a theory and a subject that I can take up to talk about. It has to be done properly. And so we started this Kaivalya Marga classes at the right time, and I think we are at the right time. So what I'm going to do is, during the days of the Navratri, the 9 days which is dedicated to Devi, mark your calendars, the date comes up on the screen, October 17th to October 24th. These are 8 days. Each day we will take one chakra and study them in detail. That is going to be my sadhana. That is going to be my offering this Navratri. Navratri is 9 holy days where we meditate on the Kundalini, meditate on the Devi principle, on the Shakti principle, exactly as the way it should be. So I feel guided, I feel the time is right that we talk about this. So be patient until then. Until then, we'll continue learning about the elements. Wherever we are at that point, we will switch to learning about the Kundalini, take each chakra in detail as much as we can, and at least lay foundations on each of this chakra, and do that as 9 day sadhana, because October 25th is the 10th, the day, the Dashara day, where there is victory of Devi, and she finally rises above good and evil, and she rises above duality to meet her Shiva. And so that is the idea here. Let us approach this reverentially, and let's hope the divine allows us to do this. This is our plan. We don't know what the divine. So let's together offer this to the universe and pray that this is made possible. I'll consider it a great privilege to use each of these days, because we're going to touch upon Bija Akshara mantras. And on each of these days, we learn a new Bija Akshara mantra. It becomes very powerful. It's like learning from the divine, getting initiated from Devi herself. So let us do that. Mark your calendars and make sure we find time. I'll come across the right time these days. And it doesn't matter if you don't watch it at that time. You can watch a few hours a little before or after. So having said that, I hope this class was useful. As with all the other classes, the earth element. For now, let's keep the earth element we'll keep the earth element to rest and take our consciousness to the next element, the water element, that is so intricately involved with the earth element. These are not watertight compartments. We'll learn about that going forward in the next class. As always, my WhatsApp number is given on the screen. Please, if you have any questions, feel free to text me. If I don't respond to you right away, I'll make sure I use it in some of these forums and address them. My email is also given to you in case you want to write to me. Our website is also there. We are always, as always, there on Facebook. My page is Sundar Iyer, and a YouTube channel is KYG Yoga. So make sure you subscribe to these channels and set up for notifications, so anytime we are live, we go live, you'll get notified as well. If you are sending me a text for the first time through WhatsApp, please don't call me. I won't take calls. But if you are texting me, please mention your first and last name so I know that whom I'm talking to, and we can take it from there. Thank you, as always, for this delightful opportunity. Thank you for allowing me into your homes. Thank you for taking time to listening to this offering. Let us end this class with 1 Om and 3 Shantis. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti.